what we see today happening before our very eyes. Trump's quest to control or to influence the Greenland. So the people protect what they don't have value for? Never. This public push from Trump to control the Greenland has sparked international controversy. And Denmark, which is the original controller of the Greenland, has also pushed back against Trump's quest to take over the Greenland. Even the original Inuit Greenlanders, the original people who are settlers or who own the Greenland, also pushed back against Trump's influence or any kind of influence from the United States to possess or to buy or to take over the Greenland. If you're new to my channel, you're welcome back. Here I talk about things I find interesting about Africa, African politics. Please do take a moment to subscribe because it helps us to grow more. So let's dive into it, because if Trump has interest in the Greenland with all the institutional protection that covers or protects that spot, what about most African countries or strategic places in Africa that has no such coverings? Greenland is the world's largest island, an autonomous territory in the Kingdom of Denmark. Greenland is geographically part of North America, also known for the vast ice coverings or ice sheet coverings, the second largest circle after the Antarctic. So you see, in simple words, Greenland is a very massive Arctic territory that has shipping significance, rich resources, rich natural resources, and also lots of military bases in the North America. With the United States government's interest through Trump's administration to take over the Greenland, all in the quest that, or all in simple excuse that the United States interest in Greenland is for the protection of the United States. You see, this is all about interest. And how does Africa come into this picture? How does Africa continent or African countries see the world politics going on? So you may be asking, why does Africa, how does Africa come into this picture, with the Greenland thing going on in the North America? We know that Greenland is owned by the Denmark or controlled by Denmark. Trump has been wooing Denmark and Greenlanders, in fact, all the allies of the United States, to make Denmark give out Greenland, all in the quest or the foreign interests of the United States. What does this tell you, Africans or African continent? Because some of these are things we look at, and you know that the world's politics is based on interest, foreign interest. To tell Africans or African stakeholders that every country or region plays by interest, foreign interest that favors their country. Trump's administration can be wooing allies and Denmark government to sell Greenland to United States, to be part of the United States. May seem very irrelevant to Africa at first glance, but shows how powerful countries behave when something is important and they seem or they feel that they can't leave that outside of their control. So it's a common belief in global politics that geography is destiny, in the sense that whoever controls a portion or a geographical space is in control of the resources deposited there. You see why Trump is pushing to take over the Greenland, to buy it by all means, wooing every necessary allies to help him get that spot. So if all this sounds familiar with the United States under Trump wanting to take over the Greenland because of the rich natural deposits in the Arctic Sea and shipping routes that will be opening up after the ice has melted, this is the same quest with which most rich countries exploit many other African, in fact, many African countries, whenever they see resources or they feel the need that their countries or their governments want things in most African or many parts of African countries, they can do it by any means to take up whatever they want, to take hold of the resources they need in many parts of Africa. This is the same kind of quest that many rich countries has in Africa that has come up over and over for decades, foreign interest that most of these rich nations has in Africa, and they take over resources of Africa in whatever means necessary for them to possess it. You see, Trump openly saying that the United States needs Greenland because of national security, even though the United States has always had a major military base in the Greenland for decades, with agreements on agreement with Denmark. But this is showing you that Trump is not spewing madness. It's a mindset, stripping away the polite asking or the polite language, showing that when a place is strategically important to rich countries, these countries don't act nicely. America, Denmark, and most of these European countries are all allies. But when it comes to national interest or the Americans' interest, Trump pushed aside everything. If Trump administration can put aside every alliance or every friendship it has or United States has with Denmark and the European nations to seek for the Greenland against all odds, what does this tell African countries or African continents? This is important and we keep talking about it because Africa has dozens and dozens of such strategic positions. Africa has it all, from mineral-rich regions to key coastal line to shipping corridors. Africa has it all, even to security hotspots. Africa has these strategic locations. You see, so that explains it. If Greenland can have such issues with all the institutionalized protection that that spot should have, and it's coming from an ally, what about Africa? Maybe this explains why the internal rumblings we see in Africa in forms of wars, guerrilla warfare, and all what have you, happens. Because most of the things we see in Africa, most of the unrest we see in Africa happens in many regions or in many places where they have good mineral deposits, all mineral dense areas. African countries should always learn that foreign powers will always want access to land, to minerals, and even to have influence in Africa. But the question there, or the lesson to learn, is African stakeholders or African leaders negotiating properly for Africa? Are they out to stand on the interest of African countries, or they put their national interest first, or to operate from a place of strength? So just as important also, Africa must unite, because in the case of the Greenland, the Greenlanders and their voices were all united, and they consistently said one thing in one voice. So you see, foreign interest has never disappeared in Africa up until now. But with Africa uniting as one, a lot of things can be achieved. So the only defense Africa has against all this foreign national interest that's going on in Africa is to be prepared, united, have clarity and courage to say no when it is necessary. Because in global politics, nobody defends what they don't value or respect sovereignty that is not defended. So African leaders should wake up to protect their territories. So thank you for watching up to this point. But do not forget to subscribe, because here I talk about things I find interesting in Africa, or topics that are very dear to me about Africa and the world politics. See you on the next one. Thank you for watching.